And good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, and also at YouTube.com on the 98.9 WXCO channel. I am Chad Holmes, and across the way is the former head football coach at Wausau West High School, Jason Foster. Good to have you back.
Good to be back, yeah.
It's a great time to be back because there's a lot going on. Again, I hate saying this, but it's like, can't believe it's already week 9 of the regular season for the 11-player. Playoffs getting underway for 8-player. We're getting down to the nub here for the football season.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of nice for the 8-man to be kind of starting, and I just found out tonight from you that all the games are on Saturday.
So it's a spot I actually think that's a nice thing to have everybody focus on Saturday on the 8-player, because who wants to watch Wisconsin play Ohio State anyways? So
not me.
So there you go. So yeah, it's interesting, and I didn't know it myself until last Saturday when the brackets came out that the games being on Saturday. I thought, fantastic, I get 2 games this week.
Yeah. And like you said, the time has flown by. Here we are, week 9 already for the 11-man teams, and still some conference titles up in the air and big games in week 9. So kind of exciting things to talk about tonight.
And we got a couple of great guests coming up, as we'll be joined by the head football coach of DC Everest High School, Braden Mitchell, who clinched at least a share of the conference championship last week. So Braden Mitchell will be with us at the bottom of the hour at 6:30. And then coming up at 7:06, we'll be talking to a guy that Coach Foster knows, so over from Wausau West, Cooper DePoit, and he had himself a monster game with more than 260 yards rushing last week in their win over Eau Claire Memorial. So that's Braden Mitchell coming up at 6:30, Cooper DePoit at 7:06, our guests here tonight. Well, let's talk about what happened last week, week number 8, starting in the Valley, talking about the DC Everest Evergreens. They defeated Stevens Point 28-13. Game was played at Gerke Field in Stevens Point. Ty Rohde, 11 of 16 for 206 yards and a touchdown. Xavier Edwards, a big night, 5 catches, 104 yards. Trent Breitbach, again, had a good evening for Stevens Point, 183 yards passing, 89 yards rushing. But before our game last week, I was getting ready to go on. We were talking, and I said, what did I say last week?
You said you thought Spash was going to run away with this one.
No, that's not what I said.
You thought Spash was going to get this one.
I thought Stevens Point was going to win that football game, and maybe it's because DC Everest had such a hard time 2 weeks ago against Chippewa Falls, and I thought that Stevens Point had, with Breitbach, the capability, but have to give a lot of credit to DC Everest, not only to win, but to win in a significant way and also do it a little differently, because it was not Corbin Enzenroth this time around. He did not have 100 yards for the first time in a while. It was the sophomore quarterback, Ty Rohde. It was Xavier Edwards, and again, that's a sign of a good team where they did it in a different way in a big game.
Yeah, I think the thing that definitely sticks out to me when I look at this stat line is Ty Rohde, right? This is far and away his best output of the year. Obviously, we've known, I think he was our first guest of the year. We know what Xavier Edwards is capable of. He's kind of had those 2, 3, 4 catches a game, always kind of found a way to get that one touchdown long one. But this was kind of what we expected. We know we had the injury early in the year at quarterback, and that's what brought Ty Rohde in. But what a great time of year to be finding this part of your game and the ability to pass the football, knowing you have an incredible running game and have been super solid all year. So really good win for them, and definitely essentially for a conference championship to have that sort of performance, that's good news for the Evergreens.
And also the bounce back factor. I always say that's something that's kind of stands out because, frankly, 2 weeks ago I was very surprised that Chippewa Falls went into steam and was able to win by 21 points. As a former coach in those situations, the following week against a really good team, a rival game, a conference championship game, that's not an easy thing to rebuild your team to get ready for. So I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, especially, losing to Chippewa Falls at home in front of
homecoming.
A huge crowd that night. I saw a lot of pictures from that one. So, yeah, I think winning it is huge. The added pressure of being conference championship on the line was huge. And then also their ability to go and throw the football and kind of make that statement win after the tough loss week before. All really good signs for DC Everest. I think those 3 losses overall is probably going to hurt them when it comes to seeding at the end of the day, but a really good position for them to be in as they finish the season.
You know who's in second place now in the Wisconsin Valley Conference?
I do.
How about that? The Marshfield Tigers. And I tell you, I mean, it's like, I mean, Denny Gato must have a second job as a magician here because they're 4-1 in the conference, 4-4 overall. They had a game last week against Eau Claire North. In fact, North had the lead late, but Marshfield got a late field goal and then added a touchdown on a fumble recovery on the last play of the game to win 43-35. And Hayden Carlson, their running back, and saw him 2 weeks ago against West, a very, very impressive performance. And he had a really big night, 257 yards on 27 carries, 4 touchdowns. I don't know how to feel about Marshfield. I give them great credit because, again, this year they started off with such a tough schedule and a 0-3 start, and it was just really difficult. But they're not exactly blowing away some of these teams at the bottom of the league either. So
no. At the end of the day, I think when we talk about the conference as a whole, right, and who's kind of at the top, the middle, and the bottom, and I don't think there's that much disparity this year other than from the top where the Evergreens have kind of take it and run away with it a little bit from a conference standpoint. I think we see the disparity on the other side, right? I feel like when you talk about the Evergreens losing to Chippewa Falls, then Chippewa Falls sits at or near, not at, but near the bottom of that side of the conference. I think that Marshfield's gonna have a tough road ahead of them as well, because the seeding they're going to get in that D2 sectional is going to be as tough as any of the seeds that these D1 schools in the Valley are going to get too. I think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I think that's what it looked like. The playoffs will tell the tale for sure when we get there. But I think overall, the comment would probably be made that the east side of this conference is probably a step behind the western teams this season.
And Marshfield actually 23rd of the 32 right now in D2, but they have an opportunity if they win this week to move up because they do face a team that has 5 wins in Stevens Point.
That would be a great win for them for sure.
Wausau West got a playoff clinching win last week, 49-14 over Eau Claire Memorial, a game that we had right here on 98.9 WXCO. Warriors 5-3 overall, 4-2 in the conference. Our player guest coming up, Cooper DePoit, rushed for a career-high 264 yards on 26 carries with 2 touchdowns. Shea Jones does what he does. He catches touchdowns. He had 2 catches, both for touchdowns, 73 yards total. And it was actually a Memorial led 7-0 after 1, but then the Warriors had 21 points in the second quarter and just kept on pounding the football. And one of the interesting things, and I think you're as good as anybody to talk about, is that Wausau West went back to a look that we've seen in the past. A lot more under center, a lot more power football. You were on the sidelines for many of the great running backs that Wausau West has had in the past decade, and it was a bit of a throwback for West offensively.
Yeah, it sure was, and kind of a throwback to just within the last few years, right, when we've kind of been able to lean heavy on that run game and have a back. I think we'll talk obviously a lot more about Cooper when he's here later, but I think one of the biggest revelations for this team or this offense has been Cooper DePoit. He kind of, as everyone knows, he's a really good hockey player and kind of was focusing on that to start the season and came out a little late. We all know what Cooper's capable of as a football player.
He was the leading rusher last year.
Right, and last year at this time he was pretty banged up.
Yes,
and it was tough. He kept trying to go, but he was really banged up. So obviously, there's some games earlier we'd have loved to have him for, and certainly could have made a difference. But I would say in this regard, I think one of the reasons Cooper's able to do what he's doing is he is healthy. Like his body's fresh, and it was really nice to see those piles going forward and kind of finding those holes and those openings, and then getting those extra yards at the end of those runs and being able to pop one off here and there too.
Absolutely. And Wisconsin Rapids still looking for that first win. They fell to New Richmond 49-14. New Richmond 6-2 from the Big Rivers. It was actually 14-14 after the first quarter, but then New Richmond was able to pull away. Sawyer Brooks, 98 yards on 12 carries, both touchdowns for Rapids. And again, we talked to Mike Krenz first week of the year, I think it was. First show. Mike Krenz was with us, and I think he knew that was going to be a process. And this is still a team that is better now than it was at the start of the year.
Oh, for sure. And I think even you look at these scores, New Richmond's a really good football team, and probably going to have a lot of postseason success.
And again, we talk so often about how much schedule goes into the year.
For sure.
I mean, their schedule, the non-conference games, have been against all really good football teams.
Absolutely. The fact that they were 14-14 after one, didn't score any more points after that, but it tells me those kids were ready to play when they got on the field Friday night, and I think that's a nice step forward for coach. I think the week before they were up on Marshfield as well.
Yeah.
Rapids was.
Yeah.
So they're definitely showing some signs of taking those baby steps, getting those little wins within the game that you're probably not going to win. I think those are all good signs of a good coach, and B, that the kids are buying into what he's doing.
Great Northern Conference, and it's been a great race at the top of the GNC. It will still be a great race going into the final week. 2 of the 3 teams that were tied for first met last week in Tomahawk, and those Tomahawk Hatchets just keep on rolling. They defeat Merrill 24-3. Tomahawk 7-1, 5-1 in the conference. Merrill 5-3. They had their 4-game win streak end. They're 4-2 in the conference. Teagan Sarazin 137 yards rushing on 15 carries with a touchdown. Canaan Yankee 70 yards rushing on 12 attempts for Merrill. Hunter Opera at 11 tackles, 3 for a loss, and a sack for Merrill as well. But only 6 of 18 passing was Merrill. And defensively, that's been one of the things for Tomahawk this year. Their defense, they gave up no points defensively against Rhinelander earlier. They only gave up, even in the game they lost, 21 to Mosinee. Defense has really been the key for Tomahawk this year.
Yeah, I know it was a close one with East too, low scoring for both teams in that one.
10 points they only gave up that night.
Yeah,
I scored 4 defensively.
I think if we recapped, for not recreational purposes only, if we'd have done some preseason polls and rankings and all that, and where we expected it to be at the end of the year, I would say this is probably one of the biggest stories that we'd be talking about and are talking about right now is Tomahawk started hot. If you'd looked at their schedule and circled who we thought they'd win or lose or compete, second year in this conference, by far the smallest school, can they compete? And I think they've done exactly that. And I think that's probably the best way of describing them. They compete. They play tough defense. They're hard-nosed. And their loss to Mosinee, one-score game. I mean, it's not like they got blown out in that one either. So I think they've got a lot to be proud of up there, and I think that they're in a really good spot as they head into the end of the season and then the postseason.
And it shows, again, I think what winning can do. And I think with Dewey Riley, his winning on the ice and now winning on the football field, there's got to be a winning mentality that's probably helping this team as well.
Yeah, I think that consistency, we talked with him about it when he was here, that he's also their head hockey coach. A lot of these kids play both of those sports, so the kids know what to expect. They know what's expected of them as far as from a coaching standpoint, what practice needs to look like every day, what the expectation is on Friday nights. So yeah, good things are happening there right now, and they got a lot to be proud of.
And they're number 3 actually in this week's whatever you call these things,
yeah.
Preliminary qualifying database, whatever you want to call it, but number 3 in Division 5, so they could be in a pretty good position when the playoffs begin next week. Mosinee is red hot. They have just been playing some really good football recently. They rolled past Antigo 41-0. They are still in a tie for first with Tomahawk at 5-1 in the conference, 6-2 overall. Treve Stoffel 10 of 11, 134 yards and a touchdown as well. Added 137 yards on the ground on 10 carries with 3 scores. But Mosinee, they just seem to be building and building and building as the season's gone on.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of ebbs and flows early with the great win against Stratford, and I noticed this when I was looking at the rankings last night or the night before as well, that their one loss is to a Menasha team, and Menasha's a 6-2 football team who plays in a really tough conference too. So that Mosinee's one loss was against a really good football team. So
and Lakeland, actually, they lost to Lakeland early.
Oh, that is correct.
That's their one conference loss.
That is correct.
Back when Lakeland was not as banged up.
Was rolling and not banged up, yeah. So I think Mosinee's healthy, which is something they really struggled with last year. Obviously, we know a player like Treve Stoffel plays such a big role in everything they do on both sides of the ball. I think their ability to run and pass the ball makes them a tough opponent right now. So I think for them, it's to continue to build confidence, stay healthy, and keep it rolling.
Wausau East is still alive for a playoff berth. They defeat Lakeland by a score of 24-10 on Saturday in a game that we had here on 98.9 WXCO. Ian Stahl, 153 yards rushing, a touchdown reception, and also returned a fumble for a score for East. But for East, big win. And for Lakeland, they are banged up badly. And I don't know. I've not, again, been around this for quite a while. You've been around this for quite a while. It seems like, I don't know whether it's more or less, but it seems like a lot of teams really are struggling with injuries right now.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes your top players can match up against another team's top players, and all is good. We talked about this a lot with Mosinee last year. I think what injuries do is really expose your depth or lack thereof it, and I think that's probably what we're seeing with Lakeland right now. Obviously a really hot start, looking good. You lose those guys. From what I wasn't at the game, but I listened to it, it sounded like their quarterback was really struggling to deliver the football and kind of handle the football. Those 3 consecutive turnovers in the third quarter really certainly did not help their case, because it was a pretty close game. It was 6-3 halftime, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and we know that Lakeland is a solid team this year, but sometimes those injuries are just too difficult to overcome.
Yeah, they started 4-0. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4. And Medford is right back. It looks like Medford has I can't say for sure because they have a tough game coming up this week, but Medford kept their playoff hopes alive with a win at Rhinelander, 42-12. Both teams are 3-5 overall. Medford 3-3 in the conference. Likely that will get them in the postseason. Rhinelander 2-4 puts themselves in the position they have to win this week to be potentially in. Carson Ingersoll, 110 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Will Wojcik, 103 yards and a touchdown for Medford. They did Medford things, 275 yards rushing as a team. And the thing that kind of jumped out was it was 30-0 at halftime, 42-0 after 3. Was not expecting that.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it all year. I think a lot of it comes down to matchups. Obviously, they're still able to run the football, and I think that's a huge part. So what your defense is able to do, what your defense looks like at the line of scrimmage is going to make a big difference when you play Medford. I think what will get them moving forward. I mean, the other positive for them is we've talked all year about how young they are, how many sophomores they're playing. And now when you get to week 9, those sophomores aren't so young anymore, right? They're battle tested and heading in the right direction. So that's definitely a plus for them. It's hard to win in the playoffs if you're both young and one-dimensional. And I think that's kind of what's getting them a little bit. They fall behind. It's hard to catch up running the football, and they do seem to still struggle to throw the football. So should be an interesting game against Mosin. We'll talk a lot more about that later, but definitely probably a little bit of a tall hill to climb.
CWC Large, it was the game this season in that conference. And Stratford, boy, you thought maybe some teams were going to be able to get them this year. Started off with a couple losses, had a scare against Wittenberg, Burnhamwood early, but it looks like Stratford has found that next gear because they've been playing great football recently. And they went into Amherst and won 34-21, handing Amherst their first loss overall this season. Stratford 6-2, 6-0 in the conference. Amherst 7-1, 5-1. And they went back to some old-fashioned power football with Brooks Vanderhoof, 35 carries, 259 yards, and 3 touchdowns. When Brady Berg passed, he was efficient, 5 of 7, 96 yards, and a touchdown. But you look at it. I mean, you thought, Stratford's maybe vulnerable. No, they really weren't.
Yeah, it's almost kind of odd to talk about it, right? We're talking about Stratford and how they're really stepping up at the end of the season. We're talking about a team that just won 3 consecutive state championships, and I understand a lot of those kids left. Brand new head coach. Yeah. So definitely there was a transition period at the beginning of the year, and there's a lot of challenges ahead of them, right? Ending the season and then heading into the playoffs. They're certainly not the battle-tested playoff team they've been in the past, but this is too, I think this speaks to, it felt like Amherst had kind of taken this conference maybe a little bit with their early games and the scores we were seeing. It seemed like maybe they were going to run away with this one. So great job for Stratford, and at 7-1, good wake-up call for Amherst in Week 8 and gives them the opportunity to finish strong and head into the playoffs with a fairly high seed, I would think.
But I want to talk about later when we talk about this week's games, but Amherst, the last 3 games, actually, it's been in this kind of
right.
It's been something that's been a little different. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Huge win for Marathon. Marathon looks like they're heading to the playoffs. They beat Wittenberg Burnhamwood 20-14. Both teams are 4-4, 3-3 in the conference. Whitburn came out, jumped out to a 14-0 lead after 1, but that was it offensively for the Chargers. Truthers, 10 of 19, 84 yards and a touchdown, 20 rushes, 62 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Garrett Bracewell, 6 catches, 42 yards and a score. Bo Davis, 3 of 9 for only 10 yards passing. Caden Yeager, 7 rushes, 54 yards for Whitburn. Neither team had a lot of yards in this game. It was a defensive battle, but boy, what a biggest win for Marathon, I think, in a couple of years.
Yeah, it kind of makes me, too, without knowing a lot about the game, that maybe some turnovers, right? Maybe some short fields, and that explains some of the lower numbers offensively. But great job. I mean, we had Coach Ninkle on a couple weeks ago and said a lot of really good things, and young coach and a new culture and new program, and it sounded like things were heading in the right direction, but you weren't sure if they were going to be able to tally up enough wins to get into the playoffs this year. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed yet, but it sure does seem like they've put themselves in a good position and a great jumping off point, finishing strong, see what the playoff matchup ends up being, but also a great opportunity for them as they head into the offseason with a lot of confidence.
Wyowega Fremont beats Loyal Greenwood 35-22. So Loyal Greenwood started 4-0, and they're now 4-4. They're 2-4 in the conference, and they have a massive challenge this week. We'll talk about later to get into the playoffs. But Wyowega keeps their playoff hopes alive. Carter Bertie-Shaw, 10 rushes, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Colton Sandelier, 22 rushes, 111 yards, and a touchdown for Loyal. But this conference, I think this kind of game is indicative of what this conference is about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we talked about this year after year because it kind of was happening in the Great Northern the last few years too. It's how your schedule lines up, right? Like there's some wins early, and I think the Loyal Greenwood's a good football team. I think they've competed, they've won some games people wouldn't have thought they were, competed hard in some others, but ultimately when these bigger, I don't know if it's bigger with the co-op, what their numbers are, but when these traditional games that they've had really big challenges in, they've been more competitive, but at the end of the day, they haven't been able to overcome in those tough games.
Spencer Columbus makes it 2 wins in a row. They beat Colby 43-12, and Spencer Columbus gets to the 500 mark at 4-4, 3-3 in the conference. Jack Haper at 257 yards rushing on 29 attempts with 3 touchdowns for Spencer Columbus, and it's been a team that's been ultra competitive all year. Now they're starting to get some rewards for some of these good performances with wins, and it looks like they're heading to the playoffs.
Yeah, really, really nice overall season for them. I would say a nice step in the right direction. And on the other side of that, what a tough season for Colby. Obviously, we've
usually so good,
right? I mean, such tradition. I'm certainly not used to this type of season. We talked earlier about how sounds like there's quite a few injuries there, but either way, that's a tough. Those are tough, and we're not just talking about being 1-7, 0-6, losing 43-12 to Spencer Columbus is not something we'd expect out of a Colby team.
Merriwood CWC, Edgar stays perfect, beating Pacelli 42-0. Maverick Butt only had 6 carries, but had 94 yards, had 9 tackles on defense. Bryce Flaker, 44 yards gained on the ground for Pacelli, but Edgar just right now just strangling teams defensively.
Yeah, and that's the recipe to win in the regular season and keep those defensive stats where you want them, and also a great recipe heading into the postseason and looking for their 3rd state championship in a row.
Auburndale just keeps on winning, beating Assumption 41-6, 7-1, 5-1 in the conference for the Eagles. Assumption 2-6, 2-4. Peyton Weinferter, 6 of 7, 105 yards and 3 touchdowns, added 84 yards on just 4 attempts on the ground. Wiley Cornwell, 14 rushes, 53 yards for the Royals. Auburndale has been really good recently. They had that big shutout win against Abbotsford. They look like they're playing some good football.
Yeah, they sure do. I think they're kind of setting themselves up for a nice seed in the playoffs as well as another good playoff run. Assumption, we talked about it early, have shown some really good signs of life for a program that's switching over next year, correct?
Yep.
So kind of early signs of life, but when they hit that tough patch of the schedule too, kind of a reminder that that's where their program's at, and probably a good choice for them.
I'm guessing they're going to make the playoffs, though, because they get a forfeit this week.
Oh,
they'll be their 3rd conference win. So I guess, again, not necessarily.
Right.
But most of the 3-win teams now get in.
Yep.
So we'll wait and see. They don't play this week, so they're literally waiting. They didn't make it up. So, but Pittsfield beat Iola 58-34. Pittsfield 3-5, 3-3 in the conference. Looks like they're heading back to the playoffs. Iola struggling this year, 2-6, 1-5. Dawson Luther cracked the 1,000-yard mark for the season, had 279 yards on 19 carries with 3 touchdowns. He's had a couple of massive games in recent weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's had a great season. I would say Pittsville got to be pretty
bad.
I was going to say pretty pleased with where they're at, and Iola Scandinavia on the other side probably feels like they took maybe a step backwards this year. And who knows, right? We talk all the time about injuries. Some teams we know more about than others, but tough season for them.
And finally, an 8-player Newman Catholic finishes their regular season 5-3, falling to 6-2 Tri-County, 34-12. Tri-County ran the ball, 414 yards rushing as a team. Jake McCarrick had 231 yards on 18 carries and a pair of scores. Freshman Eli Fight had 12 rushes, 63 yards for Newman. Everett Pent returned from injury, and he was busy. 13 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, including a touchdown for the Newman Cardinals. And again, for Newman, that's been in their losses, the rush defense. And when they face some bigger, and they're not a big team. That's generally, I mean, they're not big in numbers, they're not big in size. And the Cardinals, I think, really been solid at 5-3. But boy, sometimes when they have some of those big rushers, it's been kind of difficult.
Yeah, and I don't know. This would be a good conversation to have with Coach Mickleg.
We're going to get him eventually.
Yeah, good conversation to have with him. Kind of like that is tough. I mean, I know in 11-man football and being a defensive guy what it is whether it's an option team and they get that fullback rolling and how hard it is to slow that down. But what an even bigger challenge is in an eight-man field with the smaller box up front and then the fewer number of linemen. That's got to be once that ball starts rolling downhill, that's got to be tough to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the Cards will be again in the playoffs as they continue to be one of only 2 teams in 8-player football that's made the playoffs each and every year when it's come to the 8 players since WIAA. And I said returning, Everett Pent was not the one. It was Damien that actually returned last week. So Damien still had a good game as well coming back. So, but we'll have more on Newman and their playoff run a little bit later in the show. Coming up later in the show, we'll look ahead to week 9 of the 8-player, I should say the 11-player regular season. Look at the 8-player brackets for the playoffs. At 7:06, it will be our student-athlete guest, again, Cooper DePoit from Wausau West. And coming up next, we will talk to the head football coach of the DC Everest Evergreens. Second year in a row, they're going to have at least a share of the conference championship. And we'll talk to Braden Mitchell coming up next. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Back in a minute here on 98.9 WXCO. Wednesday from 6 till 8 p.m., it's the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes, joined former Wausau West head football coach Jason Foster and myself as we talk high school football. We'll review week number 8 of the season, preview week number 9, and preview level 1 playoffs in 8-player football, plus special guests. At 6:30, we'll be joined by Braden Mitchell, the DC Everest football coach, after the Evergreens clinched at least a share of the Wisconsin Valley Conference title with their win at Stevens Point last week. Then at 7:06 is our student-athlete guest from Wausau West, running back Cooper DePoit. DePoit had more than 260 yards rushing in the Warriors' win over Eau Claire Memorial last week. It's the Big High School Sports Show, Wednesday, 6 till 8 p.m. on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And you can join us on YouTube, youtube.com, and the 98.9 WXCO channel as well. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. I'm very happy to welcome in our coach guest for this week from DC Everest, Braden Mitchell. Coach, great to see you again.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask a question to start off that has nothing to do with actually what happened in terms of the X's and O's and everything else that went on last week. But I went to DC Everest a long time ago.
Yep.
And I saw that last week the helmets for DC Everest had DCE on, the classic look from the old days.
Yep.
Explain.
Yeah, I mean, that logo's been floating around a little bit. And in the off season, we talked about, hey, wouldn't it be cool for homecoming to kind of throw on some throwback? And, Coach Coonan, Coach Johnson, and Coach Vang had to spend probably about 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday morning redoing all those. So appreciate those guys. But yeah, they look phenomenal. A lot of alumni were very appreciative. A handful like, hey, how much do I have to pay for one of those? Like, but yeah, it was really cool. And I think that they've looked great, and we've kind of been rolling with them so far.
I saw that post. I thought they looked awesome as well. And I love you hit it on the head of the comments underneath the post where there was a lot of, we should keep them and move all the time, and then we should get our what do they want back, the gold
Oh yeah, they want
bring
the gold
back
pants.
the gold pants back
Yep.
too. I'm like,
yeah.
boy, they've
Nostalgia
kind of
never
a can
goes
of
out of
worms here a
all of
little
it,
bit.
That's right. Yep. We still have our 7th and 8th grade still are rocking the gold pants.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the game last week to begin with, because that was such a big game in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. It's been a big game in the WVC for as long as I can remember. And last year you had a classic against Stevens Point over at Steam, and that last week you went down to Gerke and won the football game by 2 scores and really carried the football game. Number one, you have to be exceptionally proud of your team bouncing back after a loss against Chippewa 2 weeks ago. But to go into Stevens Point and win the football game in that way, that's a pretty big statement for your guys, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. The Chippewa Falls game, that was, again, 2 years in a row where they've kind of just taken advantage of every opportunity, and we've given them plenty of opportunities. We talked a lot about being able to bounce back, being able to respond. That's what this game teaches you about life. And they did a heck of a job. Our players knew the moment. We harped on it. It had been a long time since DC Everest had won down there. And so that was a focus. Being able to go back-to-back conference champs was a focus. Like, there was a lot of things that, we knew what was at stake, and our guys did a heck of a job with it.
Yeah, and the last 2 years it's worked out obviously really well for you guys,
Yes,
but from an outside fan perspective, the way the schedule's set up too, that this game is week 8, and for all intents and purposes, that is the conference championship game. So that being able to go down there and do it, the thing that stuck out to me when I look at the stats is, and you can answer the question obviously and do it, but it seems like watching week to week, like Ty Rohde's progression, like it seemed like this was his best week statistically. Obviously, we all know what an incredible weapon Xavier is. So talk a little bit about that, because you had so much success running the ball, especially at times when it seemed like that's what you needed to do to win games, and having a young quarterback with inexperience. So are those things kind of all coming together right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, again, scheduling plays into that, and we've been fortunate in that, we had to be able to run the ball early and get Ty used to the game, used to the speed. And I think he's done a heck of a job of each week just getting better and better. And it's been fun for me because, in the last few years of coaching, like, I've had either junior or senior that has been really good quarterbacks. And even coming into this year, Jake was going to be really good, and we were getting to a good part with him. But just to kind of get back to some basics and get back to some fundamentals, footwork and different things, it's kind of been fun to, it reminds me of my early years of coaching and really getting work with sophomores. But, I mean, Ty's an unbelievable athlete, mentally, him playing all, as a freshman, playing baseball all year last year, I think definitely helps him in that, he's not afraid of the moment at all. And but, yeah, we kind of had to change up our offense a little bit just to get him ready and get him going. And fortunately, we have some great offensive linemen up front, and Corbin has been doing a heck of a job running the ball, and then we've been able to supplement that with some other guys.
And then having somebody like Xavier in there too, right? Like, he's coming in. Good thing for him. Not that would have mattered because people know what an athlete he is, but kind of having him knowing, we had him as our first guest of the year, that what his plan was already set before the season started, probably assisted in him being a little more. I mean, he's had his big plays, it seems like, each and every week, but kind of a little bit more of a breakout stat-wise this week, a few more receptions. But how has he been with I don't want to say diminished role, because I'm sure he still has a huge role on your team and will moving forward. But what has his role been in bringing along the young quarterback and being unselfish? I assume that those are the things that have made a big difference as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, definitely his senior year has been shifted with how this season's gone. But he's a competitor. Kid loves to compete, wants to do one-on-ones all the time. But he's a competitor. And so, when he's not getting opportunities or not getting the ball, like, it's frustrating. But he's done a good job, and I keep pushing him like, hey, it's just about building that relationship with Ty, getting more and more routes with him. But, the conference still knows what he's capable of. And each week there's going to be, they have to double cover him. They have to send their best DB to him, which has allowed other guys to step up because of that. And, that first week against West, they were not going to let Xavier get over the top. And so it allowed us to be able to run the ball a little bit more. And, it's as a former quarterback, as a guy that loves to throw the ball, it's been a little tougher for me to hold back, but that's why I have 3 offensive line coaches to help me do that.
Along that same line, that meant that, Corbin Enzenroth, I was looking, he has 180 carries, and there's been probably a few games where you've had the game in hand, so you haven't had to use them that much late in the game. And remember that game against West, it's just pound. It's
Yep.
if you're trying to get off the field, it was not
yeah.
a good sight. But he really has stepped into this role this year. Has some pretty big shoes to fill, obviously, from a year ago. But how would you take his year? What did you expect maybe at the start, and then being asked to run the ball maybe even a little bit more than expected, his trajectory so far this year?
Yeah, I think he showed great glimpses when he fill in last year for Blake. And then we also had Reed Frame that we felt really good about our running game. It wasn't going to be just the Blake Bankston show. It was going to be kind of both of those guys. And Reed was banged up a little bit throughout the early part of the year and then got hurt. And his season is done now. But so Corbin's taken on that, and he's done a heck of a job. He's a different running back than Blake, but very patient, does a heck of a job of waiting for things to develop, and then stays in the A-gap and gets going. So he's done really well, and he gets the ball in the end zone. That's where he's been good, and he's a little banged up right now too. So it kind of we got as much as we could out of him down in Stevens Point, and then but he'll be back, make a playoff run.
Kind of comparing, and you've talked about it a lot already, but it's been very different, right? Like 2 back-to-back conference championships, but done very differently. Yeah. So talk a little bit about who else then has had to step up, from a leadership standpoint. Obviously, beating Spash for that is awesome. Going to their house and holding them to 13 points. Obviously, defense have played a big role in what you've accomplished to this point as well.
For sure, yeah. Our defense has been playing lights out. Right now, our D coordinator might get mad at me for saying it, but he's been doing a heck of a job, and we've been keeping the conference really low. I think we've got a shot to keep the conference under 50. If we get it done this week, and I think that's the testament to the amount of work that they put in. Kleinschmidt is their D coordinator, and that whole staff just timeless, putting in work and watching film and just really doing a great job with that. And then getting kids to buy in. I think that's tough to do. But our defensive players have done a heck of a job buying into that and, dedicating the time to it. And then, football, when you get 11 guys to rally to the ball, it's intimidating. It's tough. And then you're able to play really good defense. And I think that's where our defense has been trajectory, heading in that right direction this whole season. So they're doing a heck of a job.
Again, we're talking to Braden Mitchell, the head football coach at DC Everest Senior High School here on 98.9 WXCO. And sometimes when coaches say, well, all 11 players go into the football, it can be a little bit of cliche, but your defense is not based around one superstar. This is really a defense that has so many players that have stepped up. Who are some of those guys that have really stepped up? And maybe to start off, is there anybody in that group that has maybe surprised in some sort of way?
I think a big part of it is at the D-line with Brad Rickert. He's been a guy that, since his sophomore year, he's been a guy that should be playing well, and but he's had to battle through some injuries. Last year only made it through a few games. So he's stepped up. The fact that we've been able to get as much out of him as we have, and he's been one that stepped up as a big leader. Losing the guys that we lost last year, we needed that. That was a big hole, and he's done a great job with that. Our linebackers continue to get better and better. Again, another kid that's been playing for, since he was a sophomore, Carson Kemp, had his best game this last week. Just did a heck of a job of buying into it and doing his job. And then on the back end, we got, Silas Weber, who's been kind of the leading force as a safety and having to play in the box a lot, which, coming into the year, he was more of a ball hawk type of guy, but he's done a great job filling in the box. And then Asa Martins continues to improve and get better each week and, developed into kind of our shutdown corner.
And that's what kind of sticks out to me. You mentioned those guys. And when we still talk about the great running game the development of Ty, how great Xavier is. But kind of what stuck out to me watching the West game live and in some of these other games too is the line play, right? You kind of talked a little bit about the D-line, probably some other guys there as well, but just how consistent the offensive line was. Like whether it's pass protection, whether it's protecting a young quarterback moving around or getting those yards. Like there's been enough over the course of the season, but a lot of them have been long drives, right? Like getting those first downs, 2-3 plays, getting those 5-6 yards on first down, which allows you to do some other thing. Who are those guys on the offensive line that have played such a big role in what you do this year?
Yeah, I mean, it starts at right guard and right tackle with Carson Zesch and Will White. Those two have been phenomenal. And then at center, Billy Schwartz has done a great job of just leading that group, getting everybody in the right spot. Our left guard started 13 games last year as a freshman, Chris Ferrario. He's just so consistent, so solid. And then Jordan Ploutz has stepped in at left tackle for us this year and has done a great job. Just if he gets his hands on you, he's driving you, he's moving you. So those five have done a great job. And yeah, it's made the transition of bringing on a sophomore quarterback a lot easier, being able to do that. And yeah, like one of our goals each game is to have 4 drives of eight or more plays. And last year we didn't hit that goal very often. But this year we've done a lot better with that. I think to start last game, we had a 14-play drive that ate up 8.5 minutes. So I think that's, to be able to do that, to take that much time, I think it's tough on the other end of, now coaches are thinking, hey, we got to score quick because we don't know how many possessions we're going to get. So again, it's been a little bit of a difference for me in my mindset going into it, but I want to win games, and these guys are doing that.
And obviously you guys have had a great playoff run last year, so what you did last year worked really well too. But I've always kind of been a proponent or a believer in the fact that what you just described there, I think, is a great recipe for playoff success as well. The ability to possess the ball, take care of the ball, have those drives, and really put the defense back on its heels, I think plays a huge role as you head into the postseason as well.
Yeah, and I think it's helped our defense, to give them time to be rested, make adjustments and stuff. And I think, then we see when we can get up that we can get after the quarterback.
The mental aspect, because Coach mentioned, that great playoff run where you won on the road 3 times in a row to get to the state semifinal. This year to have the River Falls loss and the Chippewa Falls loss. I mean, those are tough losses where you have to kind of go back to the locker room and reassess, and your team has been able to bounce back. Is there something in the water over there that allows this group, both the group last year and this group, to be able to handle maybe a little adversity? Because it looks like your team has done a really nice job in some adverse situations.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the reason for it. I think, it's always easier to refocus and to, get back to it after a loss. Sometimes after you win games, you let some things slide, or maybe, when coaches harping you on these little things, it's like, hey, why does it matter? We just won. But yeah, after a loss, those things are a lot more glaring, and the mistakes that you see throughout those wins, they show up a lot bigger in the losses. And so I think, in both years, that Chippewa Falls loss has kind of refocused us, allowed us to kind of, hey, this is what works for us. We got to get back to that. And, after last week, I think we saw that helped. But yeah, I think our guys do a really good job of being able to be in the moment. And that's something that takes time to get to it and being able to learn from mistakes and get better from it.
I think too, when you talk about Chippewa Falls, I think uncommon opponent, right? Like when you prepare for those in-conference opponents, you know what I mean? You're just building on from year to year. You guys have played Chippewa Falls quite a bit, but it's not a conference opponent, so it's a little different. Home and away makes a big difference. But when you talk about a team like River Falls, River Falls, the D2 team, and all of a sudden you look at the rankings and they're at 3 seed in Division II. I mean, they're just steamrolling right now. So I guess that leads me into my question too. The conference, like the east side, the west side, kind of. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much difference it makes. I think we could look on paper and say that the west seems to be a little tougher or stronger this year. I think when you get to the playoffs, for team by team, anything can happen. But talk a little bit about your 3 games on that side, the 2 non-conference and the 1 crossover, versus what you've seen in the Wisconsin Valley Conference this year. What are some strengths and challenges for both?
Yeah, I think that side is doing a heck of a job, and I think it's seen in all of the crossover games. After those first 2 games, I think our conference had 2 wins.
Yeah.
Like they're doing
Thanks
a great
to
job.
Superior
Yes,
for the
yeah, or maybe 3. Yeah, but yeah, I think they've got some really talented kids. They got some really good programs. I think what Rice Lake's been able to do year in and year out, like he does a great job with those guys, and just as a program, doesn't matter what they're running or anything, but like they do a great job. I think River Falls is doing a great job. They got some great athletes up front and, offensively and defensively. New Richmond's been solid. So, yeah, and Hudson has been great. Yeah, I think they're, Chippewa Falls had been, coming in. I think they had 2 wins or something. But I kept telling the guys, hey, they've lost to the same teams that we lost to. Like, it's not like they're losing to any bad teams. They're really good. They're just in a really tough conference. So, yeah, I think that conference is really good and really up right now. And, fortunate for us, like it's just Hudson is the only D1 team that's over there. So, because like all those other guys we won't have to see. But yeah, and I think our conference, this probably wasn't the best year for our conference as a whole, but I think a lot of teams lost a lot of seniors last year, and so it was kind of figuring some things out across the board. And I think teams are going to be back again, even better next year. So,
I think the one final thought on that too is, and I think this happened last year, I think for the most part that argument could have been made maybe around this time last year, and then I think the scripts got switched. All the first round playoff games were really close. You guys obviously ran through it and made it to the semis. I think part of it has to do too with where a lot of those games are played early in the season, and I think that makes a big difference. And I think the growth a team shows over the season, I think speaks to kind of the run you guys went on last year and some of that too. So I think those things all factor into those win-loss records and crossovers. Those 2 non-conference games being 1 and 2 before school even starts, I think plays a role.
Yeah. Building on that, you have work to do Friday against Eau Claire Memorial, but then looking a little bit ahead. I'm not going to ask you way too far ahead, but do you feel like your team is in a good spot to do something special like you did last season, that you learned those lessons the hard way maybe in some of those games, but last season you went over and faced one of those big river squads on the road and really impressed in that level 1 game? Do you feel like this team has that feel going towards the playoffs? And I guess on top of that, what are the things that are most important for this team to maybe be a little bit better at to make another run in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that, coming off of that Chippewa Falls game, I probably wouldn't have said yes. But I think their ability and our ability to get right and get things back on track, I think shows, what good teams are able to do is be able to bounce back. And then, in all different leagues, the playoffs that are about, where you're at and getting hot at the right time. And I think, the biggest emphasis this week has been, hey, stay on track, right? Don't slip. Don't fall back to anything. We have to keep moving, keep getting better. So I think that this Friday will be a huge push for, hey, how does this thing look as we head into the playoffs and go from there. But yeah, we got to be sharp. But then, I think you get in the playoffs and you start playing teams that, you're not as familiar with and stuff. And some of those things can benefit you if you spend some time and find some things out. I think, there's other conferences that there's really good team in one conference, but the rest of their conference is down a little bit. And so you catch some teams that maybe haven't had to play in many close games. So, that's what's fun about the playoffs is it's a totally different dynamic from the regular season.
I think talking about the conference a little bit too this year, the records certainly don't show it, but from the amount of games that I watched live and a little bit on film, it does seem like Eau Claire North and Eau Claire Memorial have taken a step in the right direction. I mean, obviously they're not where they want to be, but Eau Claire North definitely still has some athletes and has stayed competitive in games, gave Marshfield a tough game last week. Yeah. And the games that Eau Claire Memorial's been able to keep close, they've competed all the way through. I think once they get down by a couple touchdowns, the wheels kind of come off their bus. But overall, they seem like a well-coached team that has taken steps in the right direction this year.
For sure. I think, those guys, I think, have gotten better. I think Rapids has gotten better. Yeah. I think that, there's a lot of different factors that go into it. How many kids you're getting out, the group that you have each year. But that's what's fun about high school is like in 2 or 3 years, everything can flip if you can get the right things going. And so, I think Eau Claire North was tough, and that stadium now that they have, it was a cool little atmosphere that they had. And They got some sweet light shows that go on, and but yeah, I think those schools are getting better. I think that those staffs are working their butts off and working hard to improve and get better. But yeah, it is where it is.
We only got a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you, since we were talking, we can look and see these preliminary qualifying reports and the changes. And I remember last season there's a little bit of miffed folks around here in terms of some of the seeding. What's your take about where we are now, maybe compared to what it was a year ago? Are you happy to have these rankings to be able to look at right now, and everybody else sees it as well, and generally the changes that are being made in terms of the seeding?
Yeah, I think we'll have a little less shock on Saturday. That was wild. I do think like the change. I was all for the change. I think it's good, and it'll create a good 32 that get in. I think on the previous system, we probably would be a higher seed because of our, taking into account last success and all that stuff. But I think it's pretty fitting when you start looking at it. Like, I think those schools down, in the Classic 8 and that area and stuff, I think those, they're playing really good football. It's really good. The FVA is really good. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that where we're at, I think we're right on the bubble of a 4 or 5 seed. So yeah, I mean, if we take care of business this week, then we've been pushing for a home playoff game. I think it'd be awesome.
I was going to say, how big would it be after playing all those games on the road last year to play at Steam?
Yeah, I think it would be awesome. I think the community support that we get, even for just any home game, I think you multiply that for a playoff game. I think it would be awesome. There is part of me that I do enjoy the road games, because once you get on the bus, there's like it's. You get on the bus and you
that
roll.
word distraction, right?
Yes,
Coaches, that's the word. That's the word you want to take away. Take away the
far less thinking once you get on the bus, and you can just sit there for 3 hours and, hey, whatever I brought with me is what I got. Like,
right. I think that's a great point. I think whichever way you go, you're good, right? I saw some drone footage from your homecoming game the other week, and holy cow, like the number of people. I mean, it was pretty awesome. What a great. And at the end of the day, I'll speak for myself, but I think it's pretty common. I hate homecoming football games, right? Like, I mean, it's great for the kids. It's part of their lifelong memories. So all that's good, except that, there's a lot going on that week, and who knows what role that plays in the Chippewa Falls game or whatever. Plus, if it flips the other way and you end up being a 5 versus a 4, you definitely have a blueprint, right?
Yeah,
like, you definitely can bring that group together and say, hey, here we go again. And
we've been here.
We got about a minute to go. Any final question for Coach?
No, I don't think I have another question.
Okay.
I guess you always end up. So
no.
Congratulations on another great season.
Appreciate it.
Winning a conference championship in this conference is tough. So back-to-back's a heck of an accomplishment, and to do it so differently, I think, is great. So great job. Keep up the good work, and we're excited to see another playoff run from you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, last year we had you around this time, and then we brought you back because you guys just kept on playing.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to get back here again.
Hey, thanks again, Coach, and good luck against Memorial. Good luck in the playoffs.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to take a timeout for the top of the hour news update to news, weather, and sports, and then come back with hour number 2. We'll look ahead to week number 9 of the 11-player season, look at the 8-player brackets, look at the matchups. But coming up next will be our student-athlete guest, coming off a 264-yard effort last week from Wausau West, Cooper to Point. He'll be our student-athlete guest coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app, and again also on YouTube, youtube.com, and go to the 98.9 WXCO channel. Before we start here, I want to give an invitation to folks. And number one, Ian Welsh is our in-studio engineer. And Ian, you know what I want to invite people to do tomorrow? Is come here and visit us.
Open house.
We have an open house here at WXCO. So if you're out there, you want to come in, you want to sit in front of a microphone, talk to me and ask me what I'm doing right or tell me what I'm doing wrong, from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. tomorrow, open house here at WXCO. We have some food from the Mint. We'll have beverages. We have some swag from WXCO. And just a chance to look around. We'll take you all over. We'll put you in front of the microphones. If you want to hear yourself talk, we'll record you up. And also from 2 to 4, one of our statewide shows, the Todd Alba Show. He does his show in Madison. He's coming up here to do the show tomorrow from 2 to 4. So again, folks, come on over, because if you don't, it'll make me look bad. I got some of our bosses coming up, and we want people to come through the doors tomorrow.
Are you doing open interviews for co-host for the Big High School Sports Show moving forward?
I tell you, real fast, before we're going to get to Cooper to point here. Last week's show felt like a long show without you here. This week it's going to clipping on by. It goes right on by. But let's, before we run out of time, welcome our student athlete guest, Cooper DePoint. Cooper, thank you for coming on over.
Thanks for having me.
You're back, but this year you were with us in football. Last year you were with us in hockey. But after last Friday's game, I was packing up and heading down. I talked to Coach Johnson. I said, I'm going to have to bring Cooper on here because my plan was ultimately to bring you on during hockey season. But when you put up 264 yards in a game, had to bring you on over, and really glad you could make it on over here tonight. I guess we'll start off with that game last week because you came back midway through the season. You've worked your way in, and then it seemed to all come together. I mean, you were running the ball well. You're getting good blocking. Everything seemed to click. Was it one of those nights where it just felt like it was clicking?
I think this last game for sure. I kind of got back into the lineup after coming back week 4, and I think you said it. I got good blocking last game. Shout out to the big guys up front. They were definitely a big reason for that. Just great team win on Friday, and I think that's given us a lot of momentum. But
so you talk about coming back week 4, right? Like everybody knows that hockey's a big part of your life, and that's kind of what you chose to focus on to start the season. First off, what brought you back? And second off, was that a challenge, like coming into the team at that point and kind of transitioning into a group of guys who'd been together for that? I mean, I know a lot of them are your friends and you hang out with them all the time, but was that a tricky situation? So what brought you back and what was it like?
I think I just couldn't be away from it. I kind of had decided at the beginning of the season I was going to focus on hockey. I had a pretty decent junior year. I thought that I was okay with stopping my career there and just pursuing hockey, but I think, I just missed it so much, and I'm glad that things worked out the way that they did and that I was able to come back. And I'm just really thankful for those coaches and those senior class, like the rest of the team. Like, I think them welcoming me back and not saying no to me coming back was a big reason why I wanted to come back and be around them. So
when did you know you wanted to come back? I mean, I imagine that it wasn't one day, then you just went right in. I imagine it's sort of been hanging over you for a while. Was there what was the process like in your mind as the season started, and you're probably thinking, "No, I'm really missing it." Could you talk about what that process was?
Yeah, I think that first home game that I was watching in the student section, that was a big one. It kind of sucked not being out there with those guys that I've played with now for the last 3 years in high school. And, I've grown up with a couple of them, and I think I missed it so much, and I didn't want to – my last season of football, I thought, I just wanted to play with those guys and finish out. And that was kind of what brought me back. And
It's been interesting for me because I've known you and your family a really long time. We kind of go back to Eagle River, and I left Eagle River before you were really old enough to play football, and then I talked to your family about you guys coming down here and talked about playing football, and it was at that time that your dad told me about you wanting to play football and that how good you were on the football field and how much you loved it. And I'll be honest with you, at that time it was a little bit of a surprise to me because just knowing that you guys are a hockey family and that you're a hockey guy or whatever. how did you get into football, and what kind of drew you to it? Because I know there's a ton of opportunities to play hockey in the fall. So, and I know how passionate your dad and you guys are about hockey too. So what got you into football? And I think it's great. I think it's great to play multiple sports. So tell me about your football journey a little bit.
I think it was, just growing up in Eagle River, all of my friends played football. So I think that was a big reason why I got into it. But also my dad, I mean, him and his brother both played football all throughout high school, middle school. My dad finished all 4 years of football. So that was another reason I like to hit people, and I like to tackle people. So I think the physicality was something that I liked, and it was just a sport that I like a lot. So
one of the things that jumped out when you came back the first night against DC Everest is that they put you on special teams.
Yep.
And you had a great game on special teams. And then you started to play a little bit more defensively, and you started to make an impact there. Then the final step was actually the running back position the last couple of weeks, where you had 100 yards against Marshfield and then the big game against ECM. What do you prefer? Do you prefer being on the defensive side, hitting people, or do you prefer running and through people on the offensive side?
I just like to be on the field, to be honest. I like both of them a lot. I would say I prefer running back a little bit more, just because I like to have the ball. But
well, you like to score, whether on the ice or on the field, right?
I try to in football. It's kind of the joke going around right now is I can't get in the end zone. But
I did wonder on Friday night when you had like 8 rushes on that drive, got down to the 2-yard line, then he handed it off to Miles to punch it in the end zone. I was like, ooh, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm fine not getting in the end zone as long as we score and win the game. So
let me ask you about your weekend, because when you came in here, and I got a message from your mom, because you were homecoming weekend, and you took a picture right here. It said, hey, we were outside the radio station, and that you had gone to play hockey on Saturday. Well, I asked him about that. Tell us what your schedule was Friday night and Saturday.
Yeah, so that was kind of another thing that was kind of a big decision with coming back to football, is I would have a lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights on the weekends for hockey. So my schedule for this weekend, I played the Friday night game, went to bed, got up at 4 a.m., and then went over to Minneapolis, played a hockey game at 11 a.m., and then came back after that, went to homecoming with my buddies, went to bed, and then Sunday morning again, got up around 4 a.m. and went down for another hockey game. So
we talked about this earlier. You probably weren't listening at that time, but when we were doing the recap of last week's game and talking about what a great game you had and what a good win it was for the team, one of the things we talked about was, like, at this time last year, your body was in pretty rough shape, right? Like, it was, you were still giving it and trying, but your body was kind of failing you a little bit. Tell me, how you're feeling now, and do you think part of that is a result of maybe not being as actively involved the first 4 weeks?
I think definitely not being involved in the first 4 weeks. Right now, even just the guys who are just playing football, a lot of our team is banged up, and they're kind of coming back from injuries. And I think me not playing those first 4 weeks definitely gave me a little bit of a head start. Right now, my body's feeling pretty good. Not as banged up as it probably was last year around this time. But, yeah, last year is kind of the same schedule. I'd have hockey on the weekends, football on Fridays, and throughout the week. So I think that was a big part of why my body was banged up last year and doing better this year.
I want to throw a disclaimer on the end of that one, too. That is not Coach Johnson's preferred method, is to miss the first 4 weeks and then come out. So for any of you other guys out there listening, that is not the role. But ultimately this year, I think it has benefited you and, as a result, the team coming down the stretch.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the weekend. You said you played hockey both Saturday and Sunday. Did the short nights affect your play on the ice? I mean, again, I imagine it was a big challenge, both physically and between the ears. I imagine to be ready to go out, because obviously it's very important to you to perform well over in Minneapolis. How did it go? How does it affect your play on the ice having that game on Friday night?
I think I played one of my better games of the season actually on Sunday, so that was a little bit surprising just because of the recovery aspect. I didn't get a lot of sleep, so. But, yeah, I think it definitely has an effect a little bit. I think a lot of it more is just kind of knowing that I'm going to be tired going into the game, and I just got to play through it and play how I usually play, and nobody else really cares, I guess, if I don't get sleep. So
That's right.
Just got to play my game.
One of my favorite things about football compared to other sports is how it's one of the best team sports, right? It takes all 11 guys on offense, defense, special teams, kind of cliche. But when you break that down even further, it's by position group, right? So when you watch film, when you practice, oftentimes it's you with your running backs group and maybe the quarterbacks. And on defense, it's you and your linebackers group and maybe sometimes the safeties, however it might be. How have those relationships been? Like the running back room, on one hand, you're coming in and every touch you get is probably taken away from a carry somebody else had previously. But at the same time, the Wausau West running back room, every one of you plays on both sides of the ball, so fewer carries might overall make things better. So how have those relationships gone within your position group, and what have the attitudes been like?
Yeah, I think just specifically the running back group, like with Miles Waldvogel and Tate and Mua and those guys, I think they want to win football games just like the rest of us, and they want to obviously be on the field with us, but they know like whoever's running the ball well that night or whoever's not banged up the most is going to get some more majority of the carries. And I think like all three of those guys, me, Mua, and Miles, any three of us can run the ball just as well as one another. So I think like those guys are just, we push each other in practice and during the games even to try to get out there. So I think like that relationship with specifically the running backs, we're pretty close, I'd say, and we just like to push each other to be the best that we can for the games on Friday. So
We're talking to Cooper DePoit, our student-athlete guest this week on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. You lost your number. How big of a thing was that? And along that line, you must not be superstitious. Was it a big thing losing your number?
the number was not the biggest deal to me. I think at that point in the season, I just wanted to come back and play. So I think the number was not a huge deal to me. But
And did you choose 13 then?
I did. 13's pretty close to 19 for me. I think 13's just as good as 19. So
let's step away from all the sports aspects for a few moments and again try to delve a little deeper. And I don't think you have much time for a heck of a lot other things right now, but when you do have that little bit of time off, when you're not either playing football or playing hockey or traveling to wherever you're going, what do you do to get away from it all? What do you like to do to get away from it all?
I kind of just like hanging out with my buddies, and I don't get to do that a lot right now during hockey season and football season. I think I'm around them during football, but outside of that, I don't really get to hang out with them. So I think that's one of the big things. And then I also like I know my friends are gonna make fun of me for this, but I also like the recovery part of things and just taking care of my body when I can. And so that's another thing.
That's good. So let's talk school for a minute. What is and then you can, I'm sure Chad will probably follow up with the next question, but what's your favorite part of school? Like, what's your favorite subject? Who's your favorite teacher? What gets you excited about being at Wausau West and in the building?
I think just being around my friends again. I think that was a big decision for me this year was hockey, and I didn't know if I wanted to stay and play for West this year or leave and go and play, not for another high school, but in the hockey world, it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I was maybe thinking about leaving and going to play for a different Tier 1 team. So I think just being around my friends, and I wanted to have another year with my buddies. So I think.
Let me kind of bounce forward on that because, yes, I think there was folks who were, was Cooper going to be back for his senior year? And you had the opportunities. You had the choice. Could you talk a little bit about, again, I mean, this is one of those big early decisions in somebody's life. I mean, it's a huge decision. Could you talk about the process a little bit? How did you go about making the decision? Because you had, as you said, opportunities, because the road to where you want to be hockey-wise has different roads you can take.
Yeah.
Talk about the process to get to this point.
I think, it was a pretty hard decision. The biggest one, I think, was definitely football. I didn't want to give that up, and just being around my buddies for high school. Like I really wanted to do those two things, and I think at the beginning of the season, the decision I had made is I want to spend another year with my friends. I want to stay here and play for West, and hopefully win a state championship for hockey. So I think that was a big reason why I decided to stay. And then the football thing, I told myself I wasn't going to play football because I don't think I could do both and still perform well in hockey. But luckily it shook out the way it did, and I'm back, so that's fun. But yeah, it's definitely, I got a big decision to make after this year for hockey and where I want to go and play. So yeah.
What is that process for those who don't know? I know
it's different. It's different for hockey.
Yeah. So what is it? What does that look like for you? I mean, obviously, I think the ultimate goal is college hockey. Am I accurate in that? So what are the steps that you'll have to take in order to realize that dream?
So in hockey, there's this thing called juniors, and there's a lot of different junior leagues. There's multiple different paths that people take to get to those junior leagues, and I think just about everybody before they go to college plays juniors for hockey, and I think the average college hockey player is like 20 or 21. So they're not an average freshman. They all go and play juniors. They develop a little bit, and then they go to college after that. So for me, after high school, right now the plan is to go down to South Dakota and play for the Watertown Shamrocks next year in the North American Hockey League, and then hopefully work my way up to a different junior league and hopefully college after that. So that's kind of my plan right now.
Have to get some Shamrocks gear.
I was going to say that. I bet you they got sweet uniforms.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned one of the goals is to try to win a state championship in hockey this year. What did it mean to make the state tournament last year? Because it was such a great run to get through that bracket of death to make it to the state tournament. What was that experience like for you?
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I think, there wasn't a lot of people that expected that going into the season for us, but I think just the guys in our locker room expected that, and we wanted big things and expected big things for that year. And I think making it to that point, unfortunately losing, but making it to that point and kind of change a little bit of the culture was really awesome and meant a lot to a lot of us.
Oftentimes when we have our athletes on the show, we ask, who is your biggest rivalry and who do you love to play against most? I feel like I don't have to ask you that question. But knowing, correct me if I'm wrong, but knowing that it's Spash in particular in hockey, what was it like to beat them in football this year?
That was awesome. That was I think for our senior year, all of the seniors we hadn't beat Spash actually. Yep. We lost them in playoffs. We lost them in regular season. So to beat them for our senior year, at home on a Saturday, that was pretty awesome for all of us.
What would it mean to beat them? I believe you play them pretty early in the regular season on the ice.
Yep.
I imagine that that would mean a lot because they're still going to be outstanding. You're going to be, I think, very, very good as well. Let me put it differently. Not asking what it means. Because, and I think you know it as well, but you've been at all those games. Even early in the season, in December, when Stevens Point came to Marathon Park last year, it was a different feel from any other game early in the season. What is it like when that old barn at Marathon Park is really filled for a big game against a team like Stevens Point?
I think the energy's awesome in it. I think it might not be that packed, but it looks packed because of how it's not the biggest rink, so it definitely looks packed when there's people all around the boards and lined up and standing behind people on benches, and
it is packed. I'm up there.
Those games are packed.
Yep.
I gotta get those elbows out there. It's like,
yeah, those games are awesome though.
Well, I can say from a former AD standpoint and still crowd supervision standpoint, I would greatly appreciate you not allowing Spash to score when they come and throw stuff on the ice when they get there. So the longer you can hold that off, the better it will be.
But I think that we're going to see if the new AD has the capability of keeping those out of the building, right?
Yeah. Good luck.
Anything else you want to ask Cooper before we
No,
wrap it up?
I think it's awesome. I think it's good for you. I think it's good for Wausau West. So congratulations on coming back. And I think like I said, I think it's really a positive thing. I think it's great to play multiple sports, to be coached by different people. I think we've talked about that in the past, but congratulations on a great football season. Hopefully there's a lot of football ahead yet as we finish up this year, and good luck with that, as well as moving forward into hockey.
Thank you.
And our final question, I think actually it's really good because you've had to go through some different decision-making processes than maybe anybody else that we've talked to on this program. But based on your experience, based on your multi-sport experience, based on the decisions you've had to go through, for a piece of advice for a freshman as they're starting their athletic journey, whether football or hockey or whatever it may be, what piece of advice would you give them based on what you've experienced over the last few years at Wausau West?
I think a lot of people say this, but don't rush it. I think, senior year came up fast on me, and I had a lot of decisions to make, and I kind of wanted to rush into junior hockey, and now I kind of think I did rush it a little bit, and I kind of wish I could go back to freshman year and do it all over again. So definitely don't rush it. Put in the work, and you'll have a lot of fun.
Cooper DuPoit, congrats on all the success up to this point. Best of luck Friday at River Falls in the playoffs, and then, of course, on the ice all winter long.
Thank you.
For coming in. That's Cooper DuPoit from Wausau West High School. We'll take a break, come back, look ahead to the action this week in high school football coming up next here on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, the Wausau West High School football team wraps up the regular season, traveling to River Falls to take on the 7-1 Wildcats. Hear all the action live from the Cloverville Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 p.m. and the opening kickoff at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Wausau West football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Sun Printing, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, Featherstone Cabinetry, the Wausau West Gridiron Club, K5 Construction, Rocket Industrial, and the Cloverbelt Credit Union. It's Wausau West at River Falls in high school football. Live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, Friday night, starting with the pregame show at 6:35, kickoff at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. On Saturday, the Wausau East High School football team plays host to Lakeland in a Great Northern Conference matchup. Hear all the exciting action live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 11:35 a.m. and the kickoff set for 12 noon on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Wausau East football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Compass Properties, Grand Avenue Artifactory, Sun Printing, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, Lopnose, The Mill Yard, Northland Painting, Callan Street Pub, Rocket Industrial, and the Cloverbelt Credit Union. It's Wausau East hosting Lakeland in high school football. Saturday, live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 11:35 a.m., kickoff at noon on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM. Mobile devices by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app and on YouTube, youtube.com and the 98.9 WXCO channel. I'm Chad Holmes along with Jason Foster, and it's nice when our guests make it so easy.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, both guests made it easy tonight.
Yeah, two good ones. We were saying on the break, a lot of talking right there. We need to catch our breath a little bit, but no, I think they are. I think Coach Mitchell's a great one. Great accomplishments, kind of heading in the right direction, that program for sure, but did it very differently this year than they did last year. And then I think all of our student athletes do a great job. One of the things I loved about Cooper this year is kind of has a little different perspective, and the sports that he plays are different than most of the athletes that we have on. So kind of always interesting to hear what their path is and what their weekends look like.
Oh, man, I'm tired just thinking about that. I mean, man, oh, man. And again, the number one, wake after a game like that, you're not going to want to fall asleep. The adrenaline will be flowing and be up at 4 and then to get over there and then to perform against some of the athletes he had to perform against.
Right. I would say this too, in defense of you're going to have a similar weekend this weekend from what I understand.
I'm tired thinking. I've got that first little piece that I'm thinking I'm getting a little old because I've been working a little bit looking ahead towards the winter. And I'm thinking about these Tuesday nights and these Thursday nights and thinking about having to go to work the next morning and thinking, man, how am I going to get through the winter? You get older, you start thinking about that stuff.
I think back to that last weekend of hockey and the beginning of playoff basketball last year when I was the athletic director, and we went down and watched the Storm play on Thursday, came back, went down and watched Wausau West hockey play on Friday morning, came back to watch Wausau West basketball beat Everest Friday night. Go on Saturday to watch the Storm play in the championship game, leave there after 2 periods and drive to Eau Claire Memorial to watch our basketball team play in the regional finals. So, yeah, they're exciting times, but those miles don't drive themselves.
No, they certainly don't. And but that's, the fun part of it as well. So lots of great stuff going on, a couple of nice road trips. And let's talk about, again, week number 9 because a lot on the line. And then, of course, Saturday, people wake up and they'll watch for those brackets to come out, and I guess nowadays you can almost figure it out a little bit easier. Don't have to really wait, but that's a higher level than me, so I'll still look.
Do you know, like, are they still doing a bracket show?
Yes, they are
whatever?
on TV.
So after Friday night's games, they will not update those rankings.
I don't
probably,
think they
so
will.
you won't find out till Saturday morning.
Exactly,
but you should have a pretty good idea.
Yep, just to let you folks know. The show will be at 10 a.m. on Saturday. I got the email from the WIA today. It'll be on WAOW 9.2, which is, I think, catchy comedy.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully it won't be catchy comedy when the brackets come out, So last year there was a little comedy, especially the folks in the Wisconsin Valley Conference were thinking a little comedy. But yeah, 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, they will have a special show on WAOW 9.2. So there you go. Let's talk about the action before then. Friday night, Wisconsin Valley Conference, Everest and Eau Claire Memorial. And again, for DC Everest, we didn't ask Coach Mitchell, but it sounds like maybe Corbin Enzenroth is going to be either rested.
Limited, yeah.
That's what it sounded like. And again, 180 carries through 8 games. That's a lot of carries. And for DC Everest, again, Memorial, they came out for a quarter on Friday, and they're much better. It's a little bit of a... I don't know. As a coach, it's not easy to think, well, I want to make sure my guys are ready, but boy, you never want to take the foot off the accelerator, do you?
Nope. Eau Claire Memorial, I think we talked about it a little bit in regards to the West game last week. And if you look at their body of work this year, they're a well-coached team, and they've taken a step in the right direction. And if they can find ways to stay in games, they've done just that.
And even last week, real quickly, they had a running back who got knocked out of the game in the first quarter defensively, one of their starters.
Yep.
And he did not return it. And I felt like that was a big change in that game. So it's a very thin line, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, the other double whammy for them, and maybe, who knows, maybe this is good too. We talked about it with Coach Mitchell, but they are getting on a bus for the second week in a row and making, aside from Spash, one of the longest trips they make, and they're doing it for a second Friday in a row.
But they got that big new scoreboard to look at DC
They
Everest.
do have a big new scoreboard to look at.
Stevens Point and Marshfield. Boy, this is a interesting matchup because you would not have thought it, but Marshfield's a game ahead of Stevens Point in the Wisconsin Valley Conference standings. And for Marshfield, a significant game because I think they need this game, or otherwise they're going to be in a very tough spot again going into level 1. And the same thing for Stevens Point. If you look at the preliminary qualifying report in Division 1, the 32nd team is Stevens Point.
It is very interesting.
That would be a tough number 8 seed for number 1, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yep. And I think like you kind of were thinking that Spash was going to give Everest a better game than they did, and understandably so, and they didn't. And so there's a few more question marks surrounding Spash and who and what they are this year, right? They kind of had the easy non-conference schedule, did what they were supposed to, and they've hit some bumps in the road since then. And Marshfield is showed a really solid ability to run the football, right? And it obviously might not help them with their inability to throw the football. I think it's important for them to possess the ball and keep it close, right? They get down 2 touchdowns, they're gonna probably struggle against a team like Spash. But Spash scored 13 points last week against Everest.
Yeah, but giving up 35 against Eau Claire North makes me wonder about that matchup between the Marshfield defense and the Stevens Point offense. So again, for Stevens Point, they badly need to play well, I think, going into the playoffs, or else it could be very difficult next week.
For sure. And Marshfield's at home, too, and they played well 2 weeks ago against the Warriors. Yep.
Wisconsin Rapids will try to get that first conference win and first overall win for Mike Krenz at Eau Claire North on Friday night. Again, it's one of those games where both these teams would love to finish off their year with a W.
Yep, I think
actually North, if they get the win, that would be their third win because that crossover counts as a conference win.
Correct.
They beat Superior in their crossover. So, but I think they would be a team that I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the recent years, they missed the playoffs with 3 conference wins too at one point. So again, it has a lot to do because again, who you beat. Superior, I don't know if they've won a game yet. Rapids, if they win, have not won a game. And Eau Claire Memorial, they only have the 1 win. So that could put them into trouble as well. But
yeah, for sure. Tough road ahead. I think on the flip side of that, you look at Rapids and think what a great shot in the arm it would be for them to pull off that first victory of the year under Coach Krenz as the head of the offseason. So this is kind of a intriguing one for me. I do look forward to seeing that score Friday night.
And I will be heading to River Falls on Friday night as the Wausau West Warriors will try to earn a 6th win of the regular season, taking on the 7-1 River Falls Wildcats. And they've had a fantastic season. I mean, this team really has done yeoman's work. Only 1 loss, and it sort of stands out. They only scored 6 points in that game, I think. And but for Wausau West, and I think this is really a good spot for West because they're going to have to play a team like River Falls, likely in the first round of the playoffs, and go out there, give it a mini. It's a dress rehearsal. Ian knows about dress rehearsals. It's like a dress rehearsal for the Warriors going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about this new playoff system, which I certainly am not even a novice at, but the little bit I do understand about it, part of the reason River Falls is a top 4 team,
they're second in D2.
The reason they're the second team is because the teams they play in their conference all have very good records. Like the teams they've beaten have really quality wins, and I think they've done that. They've been conference championships in this conference in recent history and are a really good football team. Coach Johnson said this early in the year, so I think he has seen it coming, that this was last year was a wake-up call for them. I think West beat them in week 9 last year. That certainly helped their case for the playoffs, and I mean they're seeding
and to knock River Falls out.
Right, and I think River Falls had a rough year of a team who had been rolling, so I think it probably catapulted them into the offseason they had to get back to form this year. So I think this is a tough road for the Warriors. It's a road trip, probably like they're going to have the following week. So that's helped.
If they win, it could lift them 2 slots.
Right.
Really.
For sure.
Because right now they are 29th, which would be the first number 8 seed. You win a game against River Falls, that could be a 5 or 6 because of the juice.
Absolutely. So at a minimum, we always look at games like this. You never obviously talk to the kids or say this out loud or whatever. You're going over there to win. That's what you watch film for and prepare for. At a minimum, though, when you're talking about moving forward, you want to go over there and compete, right? You want to go over there, be competitive. You want to take every possession. You want to cause some turnovers and just kind of build that positive as you head into the postseason.
6:35 airtime, 7 o'clock kickoff Friday night. Wausau West at River Falls right here on 98.9 WXCO. WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Great Northern Conference, Mosinee at Medford, and that's all you talked about earlier when Everest plays Spash in week number 8. this has been the Week 9 game for the GNC, and usually it's a conference championship game. This year it's not, but for Mosinee, it is a conference championship game and an opportunity for Medford to build on a very impressive game last week.
Yeah, I think right, let's get football cliches here. We're in Week 9, but you kind of throw out the records a little bit for this one. I think for years past, like you said, it has definitely been a 1 versus 1A in this matchup. I think obviously Mosinee's probably favored in this one. The game's at Medford, so that works in their favor. They've been going, and I think whatever. I'm certainly I'm not going to be surprised if Mosinee kind of wins this one handily, but I also wouldn't be shocked. Like, I look a little bit at last week's Amherst versus Stratford, right? Like, I'll speak for myself. I felt like this was Amherst's year to kind of, at least for this year, to take back that conference. And all of a sudden we're sitting here and Stratford not only beats them, but beats them handily. Yeah. So, I mean, not predicting that in this matchup, but I do think Medford, I mean, this is a tradition game. There's bad blood. They don't like each other, and they're going to do whatever they need to kind of come away with a win. So it should be a physical, tough matchup.
One aspect, Medford, they experience coaching. And I think against a team like Mosinee, you have to have a good coaching staff and a good game plan because you know what Mosinee's going to want to do. Yeah. But you got to find a way to try to slow down Treve Stoffel, both on the offensive side and the defensive side. And I think if there's anybody that's got that ability, it could be the Medford staff. Because it's a veteran staff who's won a lot of games.
Yeah, and the other thing that sticks out to me about this matchup is that listening to the Medford game when they played East, right? They moved the ball all over the field. They just couldn't finish. Right. Like, they couldn't get it in the end zone. They go for it on fourth down all the time. They go
7 times.
They go for 2 all the time. You know what I mean? So those are the types of things that make a big difference in a game. So a couple of those plays bounce their way, and all of a sudden they get some momentum. But I do think also if Mosinee gets up on them, I do think their inability to throw the ball could certainly hurt them as well.
And they really were not good throwing the ball. Right. That's one thing that jumped out doing that game is that you're exactly right. They moved the ball up and down the field. They got some really good young running backs who's going to be around for a couple more years. They ran for well over 300 yards in that game. They scored 6 points. Yeah. I mean, it was like it's hard to do that.
Yep.
It's hard to do that. But, yeah, when they were forced to throw it, boy, they didn't complete a pass.
Right.
I mean, it was just not good.
And Coach Wilson's a heck of a coach, so that might certainly be part of the process, and he knows how to play in big games, so should be an interesting one.
So Mosinee is tied with Tomahawk for the conference lead. Tomahawk will try to secure at least a share of the conference championship. I don't think many people thought that before the start of the year. They traveled to Lakeland. Again, the Lakeland Thunderbirds got off to a great start. They were 4-0. They're now 5-3. They are 3-3 in the conference, but they are a banged-up football team. And frankly, I did not see a game in a long time where there were more injury timeouts than the one on Saturday. It felt like it was a long game because there were a lot of injury timeouts. And going into the game, Lakeland was banged up. But again, you just have to give, I think, Dewey Riley a lot of credit for what he's been able to accomplish because for a lot of years it felt like they have that really nice stadium there at Tomahawk. It felt like they had some of the potential, but it never came together. And now it's finally come together.
And I think such a big piece of this, and I think to some extent, you could, obviously not having the same successor type of season, but you could say some of this about Wausau West too. It's not all the time that your hockey players play football.
Yeah.
And in this regard, they do. And I think this is a big game for Tomahawk, not necessarily from a matchup standpoint. Like, I'm not sure Lakeland's going to give them much of a game here. But when you look at what's at stake for Tomahawk in this one, a win here keeps them in the top 4, gives them home field advantage through the first 3 games. And I think that's a really a big thing for a team like that as they head into the playoffs. So Lakeland's got very little to lose in this one, and Tomahawk. There's no reason for me to think Tomahawk isn't going to come out ready to play and have a great game and a lot of success. But definitely an important game for Tomahawk to make sure they get a win in.
Yeah, they're number 3 right now, so that would be a number 1 seed in Division 5, and that's an interesting bracket. We'll touch on a couple of the other top 10 teams coming up here in just a few moments. Anago at Wausau East. Wausau East, in all likelihood, would be a playoff team. And that was actually, for this new system, beating a 5-win Lakeland team was huge. Because now you get to 3-4 with a win against Anago. That would put them in, I think, a pretty good spot to make the playoffs. And Anago's just been a struggle this year.
What is Wausau East rank right now?
Wausau East is in the 20s. Let me go back and take a peek here. But Lumberjacks actually moved up significantly with that win. They're not 25. So.
Okay, yeah, so they're pretty solid in their spot.
I don't know if the Anago win would give them a lot, but they would be 6 or 7, depending on what the other teams around them do. But it's been an up and down year for East.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add?
No, I think it has. I think I would say 4 weeks ago, East had consecutive tough losses there. The Rhinelander one probably sticks out in our minds the most.
Tomahawk one.
Yep, and Tom. I mean,
Two
what
safeties.
a difference it would have made for both teams if they'd have found a way to pull that one off. But with those consecutive losses, at one point, the way Lakeland was playing and knowing they still had them on the schedule, a tough Merrill game that they didn't win.
Is huge too.
Right,
now.
exactly. And knowing Medford, and they were playing better football. So, I mean, East has earned their way to where they are right now. So, obviously, I think they couldn't ask for a better matchup than they have in Week 9 that should allow them to kind of stay where they're at in that playoff chase. And then once you make the playoffs, anything can happen. But as we all know, in football, making the playoffs is special in and of itself because not everybody gets in. So a good step for their program if they're able to get back in consecutive years.
And Rhinelander is at Merrill. And for Merrill, it's about getting a W and improving that seeding. For Rhinelander, it's about getting a third conference win. And Rhinelander has just been you put your hands in the air because you're not really sure what they are because they've had that win against East was impressive, 28-14 at Tom Field. I mean, that was a good win. And they've had some losses that just make you shake your head.
Yeah, Forrest Gump were here, he'd be saying Rhinelander's like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get, right? And I think Merrill needs a solid, convincing win as they come out. I mean, I'm not sure in this current playoff format how much wins can catapult you or drop you at this stage of the season.
That's a good question.
Yeah, to be determined, right? But I think for Merrill's sake, as they head to the playoffs, a really solid start to finish victory for them, I think, kind of gets them back in the right mindset to where we really felt they were earlier in the season.
To be honest with you, when you look at, again, I've got up in front of me these rankings. I mean, I'm looking at Division III right now, and Lakeland is 12th. And there's no way they're the 12th best team in Division III. And that's nothing against them, just based on where they are injury-wise and everything else. Merrill's 13. So it's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it speaks to the conference, right?
And Menominee's 24, and you think about the conference they're in, it's like...
I think Menominee would be licking their chops to have these teams coming to town for certain. But I think it kind of speaks to the conference stuff, right, that we talk about. Like these teams all had really good records at one point, and
when do you play?
It was a 3 or 4 team race because everybody had 4. Everybody was 3-3 or 4-2 at one spot. So those wins and kind of whatever the points mean gave you extra points and have put them in those positions. So I think a win for Merrill is a really nice win for them and probably gets them a nice home game level 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, it goes back to a point. I do think there should be a human element involved somehow.
Don't disagree.
Some people think that it should all be computers, but I do think there should be a human element because sometimes numbers do lie. Numbers never lie. Some people say, no, I think numbers sometimes do lie, but that's a whole different situation.
I mean, if you look at where Lakeland is right now, if they don't drop, they're going to be a sub 500 conference team, 5-4 overall. And if in a bracket like that, a team ends up getting a home game, I think you're going to have just as many people screaming about this playoff system as you had about the last one.
I mean, what would losing to a then 8-1 Tomahawk team mean? I would not think that would hurt them that much, right? So interesting. CWC large, you got Loyal Greenwood at Stratford. Loyal Greenwood, 4 weeks ago, you would not have thought they would be fighting for their playoff life, but. Unfortunately for them, they have to win in Stratford.
I was going to say 4 weeks ago, they were probably hoping they wouldn't have to win this game to get into the playoffs.
Exactly. And for Stratford, again, they just continue to play exceptionally well. And then there's Amherst at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. And Whitburn now 4-4 overall, 3-3. Boy, their losses, they lost in overtime at Tomahawk. They lost in overtime against Stratford. They lost after a 14-0 lead at Marathon last week. The only game, and they even had the lead against Spencer Columbus at halftime before that one turned around. Unfortunately, you didn't have a chance to talk last week with Coach Rick, but again, he's been proud of what this team has accomplished. They lost their starting. They lost one of the best players in the area due to a knee injury before the season started. They have to go back to the drawing board when it came to their offense. They've been unlucky all year.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think this is going to be a very interesting game because I was mentioned earlier. Amherst started the year off. They were just pounding teams.
Yep.
And then they struggled a little bit against Loyal. They struggled against Spencer Columbus. They've lost to Stratford. I think for Whitburn, they want to get a W because I think that would help significantly wherever they end up in the postseason. But for Amherst, and again, I look at the numbers. I want to tell you this. Stratford is behind Amherst even with that loss last week. Amherst is number 5. Stratford's number 8. Remember a couple years ago when Auburndale was ahead of Stratford, and they were all bent out of shape about that, and then Stratford went to Auburndale and won the playoffs.
And Wittenberg gets a win here. Marathon has that victory over them. That's got to only help them too if they find a way to beat Spencer Columbus this week.
And Wittenberg is 17th, even with all these tough losses.
Yeah.
So they're still right there fighting for a potential home playoff game as well. But I think this will be a very interesting game.
I think the one thing I've just off the cuff, and that maybe this will prove me wrong when the final seedings come out or as we move forward through the years, is it looks to me like Division I is definitely the toughest one to move or make. I mean, there's just so many really good programs.
Yeah.
Coach mentioned earlier about the Classic 8 down there in that Madison, Wausau area, whatever. There's just some outstanding programs, and I think once you kind of get into the meat of the season, I think it's a lot more difficult to move up or down in those areas just because of the level of competition.
I think you're exactly right. Another really good, CWC Large has some really good games this week. Spencer Columbus at Marathon. I mean, I've been impressed with Spencer Columbus from the very beginning. They played really tough games against good opponents, and now they're winning, and they're going to be in the playoffs. They're 4-4, 3-3. Marathon, we talked to Coach Dinkle a few weeks back. They had a couple of really tough losses early. They could be a 6-2 team right now instead of 4-4, but they're 4-4, 3-3. They look like they're going back to the playoffs as well. For both these teams, I think this would be a great W,
right,
to make Saturday even better.
No, I agree. I think if you're Marathon, which is the team we know more about and follow a little more closely, you win this game against a Spencer Columbus team, like you said, that's been playing well, and you parlay that with your win over Wittenberg Burnhamwood the week before, you got to feel really good about those playoffs and where you head. You're looking it up for me right now,
well, I want
right?
to see if they have a chance for a home game. They're 22 right now,
so that'd be tough.
It would be tough at this point, but
right.
Again.
But if you'd have told Coach Dinkle when he was here a few weeks ago that they were going to be 22 going into Week 9, he'd have probably taken that.
And then there's Wyowega Fremont. They will be taking on Colby in the final game of their season. Wyowega Fremont, they are 2-4 in the conference. That means they have to win this game. They're number 16 this weekend. Some interesting stuff in these numbers, I tell you.
Yeah.
I guess the assumption is they're going to beat Colby, be 3-4, 5-4 overall. But if they don't win, then again, I mean, does 2 wins automatically eliminate you? I don't know.
I don't know that either.
Do you drop from number 16 out of the top 32 with one loss?
I can't imagine.
But that's weird. But Wyowega Fremont, I think, theoretically should have to win this game, but maybe they don't. I don't know. And then there's the Merriwood CWC. Abbotsford at Edgar. Abbotsford, I think they've been banged up a bit late in the season. That game against Auburndale kind of stood out. And even the game against Pittsville, where Pittsville put up 42 points and Dawson Luther had like 8,000 yards rushing that night. But Abbotsford at Edgar, this is not a great way to go into the playoffs for the Abbey Falcons against an Edgar team that just has been really good.
And I would say maybe it is a good game for the Edgar Wildcats as they go into the playoffs to face a team who at their best rushes the ball really well. Yeah. So you pitch a shutout against them. You as Coach Sins, you feel pretty good coming out of that. But Abbotsford also had the bye week this last week.
True. That could help.
So right. If health was an issue for them, maybe they've gotten a little healthy. Obviously, isn't anybody picking Abbott unless it's against the spread. Isn't anybody picking Abbotsford to beat Edgar this week? But probably an important game for both teams.
Auburndale at Iola Scandinavia. And you look at Division 6, you got Edgar number 4, you got Auburndale number 9. So, again, a couple of these CWC Merriwood teams very much could be in the mix to face off in the playoffs later on.
Yeah, and I think that Auburndale and Iola Scandinavia's had a rough go, so I don't know what beating them does. But at 9 for Auburndale, if you get to 8, that's a big difference.
That's significant. Got Pittsville at Pacelli. Pittsville has worked their way into the playoff mix late in the season. And, again, this Dawson Luther, I mean, he had, Bobby, he cracked 1,000 yards last week. I think he got most of those yardage in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Assumption has a forfeit win against Roshelton. Let me look at where's Assumption here, because maybe they're going to finish up their 11-player journey with their 30 seconds, and I don't imagine they're going to be hurt by winning by forfeit. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
wouldn't that be something?
So they're number 32 in Division 7. Pittsville number 31 in Division 7. So Pacelli is number 29 in Division 7. All these CWC Merriwood squads are all in Division 6 or 7. Looks like they're going to the playoffs.
And probably loving this new playoff system.
And in 8-player, the playoffs get underway this week. And a couple of teams from our area involved. The Newman Catholic Cardinals are a number 5 seed. Travel to number 4 seeded Frederick. That'll be Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock kickoff. I will be making the 3-hour trek to Frederick. On
riding the team bus?
It's the plan.
All right. At least you can nap.
That's exactly right. So 12:35 airtime, live here on 98.9 WXEO. We go everywhere. We don't just show up for the easy games to broadcast. Some people do that. Do you know that?
No cherry picking
No,
here.
we're at all the games. If it's West, I'm going to River Falls. If it's Newman, I'm going to Frederick. So, but for the Cards, again, they made the WIAA 8-player playoffs every year. Only 2 teams have done that. They're back at it. And one thing is, I mean, this is a Frederick team that's a solid team. I was watching actually a little of the film of Frederick. They got a couple of kids that look like pretty good athletes. Right. Talking to Coach Carl Thorpe, he said, nobody, they don't have one of those like LT types, take over a game, but they don't have anybody that's really weak either. They got a lot of good players all over the field. And it's always interesting when you face a team you haven't faced before. I mean, that's one of the interesting aspects of this game, and I feel like Micklig and his staff will be able to take advantage of that.
Do you know what style offense they play?
They got different kinds of formations. They have a little bit of a spread, a little bit under center. I mean, they do different kind of things.
So, I mean, it'd be good for the Cardinals to see a team that's not going to roll up 400 and whatever yards like they did last week, although maybe after watching the film they do that. And kind of like what happened with the Wisconsin Valley Conference last year, going and seeing some different teams. The expansion of the playoffs allows for some of those other opportunities, and maybe going on the road and seeing some different trees, as they say, will be good for the Cardinals.
And Athens made the playoffs as well. The Athens Blue Jays, number 4 seed, so they get a home game against number 5 seeded Niagara. And of course, we had a chance to talk to one of the Athens players, running back, who had a great year. So good for Athens. They only won, I think, 1 game last year, so they turned it out really nicely.
Fantastic.
Well, we got what do we got left? Under a minute to go. Week number 9. Any final thoughts?
No, I think it's been a great regular season. It'd be interesting to see these matchups and see how the final conference championships and to see what this new playoff system looks like. And
I'm curious to see who's going to be upset Saturday when these brackets come out.
If there's one thing we can guarantee, it's going to be somebody.
And we will have some brackets to talk about, both the 8-player with the games actually being played, and then, of course, we'll talk about the level 1 11-player games next week as well. So a lot to look forward to.
Looking forward to it. Should be a great week 9, and here we go, playoffs.
We'll see you next week. Thanks to Ian Welsh, our in-studio engineer. I am Chad Holmes, and we'll see you next week on the Big High School Sports Show on WXCO.